Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. How you doing today, Chase?
Doing pretty damn good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, as usual, let's start with the MLB. You know what? The fun thing I want to talk about today is AL MVP. And a lot of people have just been giving it to Aaron Judge to run away with. Shohei Ohtani is right there, and I'll be honest with you. But I think Judge's numbers are so good offensively and so much better than Ohtani's, if we're being honest right now. I think you have to give it to this guy. He's been the whole Yankees offense. If you've seen that meme, he's literally like a brand new 2022 Lamborghini parked in a shitty house. So, I mean, like, I feel like this guy on offense has actually been incredible. One of the best offensive seasons I've ever watched. And the man's on pace to hit 62 home runs right now. So I think he's going to run away with it purely how much better he's been on offense than everybody. And that's no hit on Ohtani. But I mean, when you look at the offensive numbers compared, there's really no comparison there. I mean, like, I know Ohtani's been great pitching wise, but I feel like Ohtani would have a little bit more of an edge if I would consider him maybe top five in AL Cy Young. But what's your opinion on this?
I feel like he should be top five in AL Cy Young. He's arguably the best strikeout pitcher in the AL. And the only thing that's holding him back is the fact that he can't pitch 35 games a season like most of these other guys can, because he's also batting as much as he can. But yes, Judge's offensive numbers are so great, but I feel like that's kind of a trickle-down effect from the batting average era, where they were just kind of like taking the base numbers and using that to determine who's the winner. But when you really break down the game, yeah, Judge is having one of the best offensive seasons he's ever seen, but Shohei Ohtani is one of the best, if not the best player I've ever seen. And it's kind of like the LeBron thing. Every year he's in the league, he should be the MVP. There's just nobody that brings to the table what Shohei Ohtani brings to the table, and especially this season. I think that he's every bit as good as he was last season and pretty much ever since he's came into the league. And I mean, we'll talk about the other day, he saw a 100-mile-per-hour sinker in game, and he looked up at the board. It went viral. He was like, that's pretty cool. The very next outing, he came back. He has never thrown a sinker in his life before. He's on record saying that's not a pitch that he uses. He threw a 100-mile-an-hour sinker. He can just add that kind of stuff to his arsenal. Like, we are watching a living and walking legend in Shohei Ohtani. And yes, Judge is going to put up some crazy historic home run numbers. Of course he is. He's a great player, but there's just nobody that matches Shohei Ohtani. I've been on record saying he's the MVP. Go check my Twitter. All of my most liked tweets are about Shohei Ohtani being the MVP, because there are people that realize, yeah, there's nobody like this guy.
See, I agree with you. I do think Ohtani has that LeBron effect where he is the most valuable player. But if we're talking about this season alone, I really think you can't use the pitching. I mean, you can, but if you're using it against Judge in the argument where it comes to like, well, he's not pitching, I don't really think that's his fault. I mean, Ohtani's like the first guy to do this since Babe Ruth. But if I'm looking at just offensive numbers and literally the same amount of at-bats, Aaron Judge's offensive numbers skyrocket over Ohtani. And I feel like that is the one thing that really just makes it evident to me that if we're talking about one MVP season, I would just give it to Judge. I mean, Ohtani's offensive numbers were a lot better last year, but compared to this year too. I mean, the same amount of at-bats this year, Aaron Judge has close to 20 more home runs. He has over 30 more home run or RBIs. He has more stolen bases, but it doesn't really count. He has a better batting average. Just really think he hits everything else in that category. And when you're comparing, we have to look at that. I mean, you can't just use, well, the fact that Ohtani pitches as like your one selling point, I guess.
Yeah, you could say that if Ohtani was just a regular pitcher, if he was just a pitcher that was in a rotation. Ohtani leads the league in strikeouts per 9 this season. He's got 5.48 strikeouts per walk. He's literally got a 1.044 whip. His ERA is it's better than Corbin Burns, the Cy Young winner last season. He's got a 2.58 ERA in 23 starts, 136 innings to 181 strikeouts. He is the best pitcher in the league, on top of being a very, very, very productive bat. I mean, what is it? I think it's an 880 OPS last time I checked. That is incredible. So the fact that he's doing both of those really just, it takes over the 20 extra home runs that Judge is hitting in the most hitter-friendly stadium I can even think of. Not necessarily. There's a couple more, but the whole joke with them, they're a little league stadium. So of course Aaron Judge is going to hit the most home runs for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing it every night, though. I mean, he again yesterday in Tampa Bay had a home run. I feel like every single night I'm getting the notification that Judge is one home run away, one more home run away from breaking Maris's record. So I don't know. I just think the offense numbers are so impressive. But I'm going to be honest. I don't think Ohtani's a top 5 pitcher in the game yet. I think he's in the top 10 mark, but I don't know. I feel like there's a good amount of pitchers I would take over. Like, not a good amount, but probably like 5 pitchers I would take over him right now.
I strongly disagree with that. He leads the league in strikeouts and strikeout per 9. I mean, there's just he's got all the stuff that you want from an elite pitcher. The knock on him is that he can't pitch 35 games because he's also an elite bat. Maybe there are some pitchers that raw, just straight up pitching you'd rather have, but there is no pitcher I'd rather have on my roster than Shohei Ohtani.
Pitcher or player?
It's the same thing. Same player, same pitcher, because he's both.
I'd rather have a guy like, I'd rather have a guy like Sandy Alcantara, because I feel like a lot of other teams would realize that you can't throw 5 to 6 complete games, and by September you're going to probably be washed. I feel like if he was on a lot of smarter teams, like say like if he stayed with the Cardinals or he went to a team like the Brewers, they would realize, hey, like it's really cool that you can pitch complete games and like do it consistently, but by September your arm's going to be dead. And in that, that's been proven the past couple of games. I mean, he had one outing a couple days ago against the Braves where I think he let up like 6 runs in 4 innings. And like, I was watching him pitching and like everything mechanically looks a little slower right now because he looks like he's getting tired. And like, that's no hit on him, but I don't know. I feel like Don Mattingly has to realize you've been in this game long enough to realize the MLB season is very long. And you know what? You're not going to make the playoffs this year. The Marlins are probably top 3 in my poverty franchise rankings, but there comes a time where you have to say, all right, we're not going to compete anymore this year. Let's save them for next year. Let's fix this terrible offense where statistically, I'm not trying to change the conversation, but the Marlins have the worst offense in history right now. I mean, their team batting average is 196 right now. The last team to hit this bad was the Washington Senators over 75 years ago. I just wanted to throw that out there. But I just feel like there are other pitchers in this game that I would take right now over him. And I'm not saying I think Ohtani is going to increasingly get better. And I think next year I could change that answer. But right now I would definitely take a few more pitchers over him as my number one. Because I think a lot of it comes down to managing.
Gonna have to agree to disagree on that one.
All right, I respect it. But another thing that I want to talk about is the NL Cy Young. And, we're just talking about Sandy Alcantara, and, all season he seemed to basically
been closer now.
He's been seeming to run away with it. And there's a few names out there that, could track him down, like, Max Fried, maybe Julio Urias. Tony Gosselin, I feel like, was right there, but until he got hurt, and we don't really know how. And that sucks. Because I've always been a Gosselin guy ever since watching him in the playoffs a couple years ago. He's an older, newer player too. I think he's like 28 already, and he's only his 3rd year in the league. But he's come out, he's been great, and that was a shame to see. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a battle to the end. I think if Sandy can give a few more quality starts, he'll probably get it. But 2 more bad starts, I'm giving it to Max Fried.
Well, Max Fried is right there, but Sandy's given up what is it, 13 runs in his last 3 starts? That's including a 9-inning complete game against the Dodgers, allowing only 1 run. So take that one out. He's given up 12 runs in 2 games. It's not something you want to see coming down to the stretch towards the Cy Young. I think that Urias is a very sleeper pick. He's got the lowest ERA in the league. He's got a 3.8 WAR. I think he's the best lefty in the game, honestly. At the moment, currently healthy, and I mean, I wouldn't hate giving it to him. The only issue is that I don't know if he's going to finish with even over 200 innings is a thing, which is probably why it goes to Fried. But I think Urias, he's absolutely nasty, and he gets overlooked a lot by a lot of people just because he's on the Dodgers and he's not Kershaw.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to think that in Sandy Alcantara's last 3 starts, he's up 13 runs and his ERA is only 2.36 still. So I just feel like that's the only thing you have to look at a little bit. I mean, it's a little recency bias because, like, other than that, he's been literally insanely
Yep.
remarkable. So I feel like if he can just bounce back from this, doesn't really have another 6-run blowout type of inning or type game, I think he's going to end up getting it. But if he does and he's keeping up on this pace, and as we said, he's looking more tired as he goes on, I'm giving it to Max Fried. But
It'll help that he's not playing the Dodgers and the Braves in his next few games.
yeah,
That'll probably help a little bit. But
I mean, August 21st, he got shelled by the Dodgers. 3 innings, 6 earned runs, 10 hits. Like he's one. And it's funny because as Alcantara is funny, like he's one guy I would never put an over/under on strikeouts because some games he'll literally throw a complete game and he'll strike out 3 batters, and then there'll be other games where he'll strike out 13. So it's just like so funny to watch a guy like that pitch. I feel like he really changes his approach to a lot of teams, which makes it fun to watch. But who? So you said you give it to Fried?
yeah, probably. Well, honestly, it's Alcantara, but the runner-up is probably Fried. But like I said, my favorite guy in the race is probably Urias.
Yeah. I mean, one guy who I know is not going to get it because it's like hard to, give it to a guy like this. I think just Edwin Diaz, man. Like I know it's
Yeah.
hard to I know it's hard to give it to a closure. I know it's hard to give it to a Mets guy, to the MLB fans out there, but his last 30 games, his ERA is 0.88. 0.88. And like he throws 3 pitches. He throws 2 to 3 pitches. That's it. But I mean, those 2 to 3 pitches, you can't hit them. He's throwing a 103-mile-per-hour slider coming out to Timmy Trumpet. I mean, I don't know if you saw a couple nights ago, but they literally had Timmy Trumpet playing live, and like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm on the opposing team right there. I'm like, shit, like there is no shot I'm winning this game. So I mean, I just feel like they have to get a little more consideration because the biggest, I don't say I would say the biggest Cy Young I can't really think of the word right now, was last year, though, in my opinion, with Burns and Wheeler. Wheeler led in innings pitched by over 50, and he still did not win. So I'm not trying to flip the switch, but I'm talking about closing pitchers. One closer that absolutely should have won Cy Young a couple of years ago was Zach Britton on the Baltimore Orioles. It was one of the best pitching seasons I ever saw. And I feel like if he can't win it, I don't think anyone's going to win it. But again, I don't know if you saw those rumors or predictions that Edwin Diaz could be the first $100 million closer.
That will be a mistake.
That would be the biggest mistake ever, especially Edwin Diaz doesn't have the best track record. Like every person, there's always a guy who comes out for a year and looks like the MVP, looks like the best guy, gets paid. And then I'm like, all right, I got paid, especially in baseball when like most of the money, and it was kind of funny because, with that Julio Rodriguez contract, it was different than a lot of other contracts. A lot of contracts are fully guaranteed, like right from the start. And, I don't know how much you would get out of throwing a pitcher a closing pitcher, $25 million a year for 4 years. And how old is he now? Like 29 already. So I don't know. It's very risky. And I think it could be a big blow on them in the long run.
The case for an Edwin Diaz Cy Young, I want to back up a little bit because you were talking about the Burns, Zach Wheeler Cy Young. I think Burns had 70 less innings pitched or something like that and still won it. But why did he win it? Based on his strikeout per 9 and the amount of batters that he struck out. It was a historical rate. That is exactly what Edwin Diaz is doing this season. He has 101 strikeouts in 53 innings. He's striking out 17 batters per 9. He's got a 5.94 strikeout per walk rate. I mean, if you ever want to make a case for a closer winning MVP, this is the year to do it coming off of that season and that Cy Young race. But the only thing that I think would kind of stop him from doing that is the fact that he only has 29 saves, which is it's a small amount for a closer. That really just means he hasn't been put in the opportunities. But that I do think that holds some weight when it comes to looking at the voting. It's going to be close to a career low in saves for him this season.
Honestly, I feel like that just shows how good the Mets are, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah,
and like that's no blow on Diaz because I feel like he does pitch a lot of games, just not save opportunities, I guess you could say. And you just made that great point with Burns and Wheeler. I just feel like the MLB fans and voters, they just will never give a closer that same amount of respect. as you would give a starting pitcher, because the argument is always you see more of the starting pitcher, they're pitching more innings. I don't think there's a more dominant, maybe DeGrom when he's healthy, but I don't think there's a more dominant pitcher in the game right now than Edwin Diaz. But, this might seem a little hypocritical, but there is one guy, one closer that I would take over him. And it is Mr. Emmanuel Clase from
same team,
the Indians. Yeah, that bullpen is the best in the game, and we've kind of always been covering the Guardians a lot this whole time, and like we've been really into them. I don't know. I feel like they sneak in there, and you have to face that bullpen in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. It's going to be hard, especially if the Guardians put a couple runs on the board.
That's something that I wanted to talk about because that division race is getting very, very close right now. The Guardians are 68 and 63. The Twins are 67 and 64. And the White Sox are 67 and 66, all within 2 games of each other. And the White Sox have won 4 in a row since Barusa went out. And obviously, we want Barusa to get better. We're praying for him. But we've been saying this long before he went out. He should not be the coach of that team. Like, it's just, he is a detriment to that team, the same way that Joe Girardi was a detriment to the Philadelphia Phillies. But now that we're seeing him leave, we're seeing some life pushed into this team. And I think as we start going down the stretch here, this playoff race is going to get very exciting. I could see, any one of those teams coming out. I think the Guardians have like you said, the best bullpen, and they've got the edge right now. But it's always fun seeing the divisions come down to the end like this. If I had to give it like a comparison, it would be the NL East when every team was like pretty bad and like whoever made the playoffs was going to get like crushed in the first round. But like, it's still fun to watch these competitive games coming down the end.
Yeah, it's funny too, because when you talk about like the NL East and, everyone thought whoever came out of that division was a joke. And then the Braves ended up winning the World Series that year. So I think it's just funny. And to be honest, I feel like any of those 3, I'm going to be honest. I'm not the biggest Twins guy out there. I don't really like their starting rotation. I don't think they have an ace. I think they have a lot of 2s and 3s in that rotation. But I really do feel like a team like the White Sox, if they're healthy, and again, that's a very big if. Like they're a big if team this year, and I really just like the Guardians. And I think the thing that will burn this Guardians team is that they were so stiff at the deadline and they refused to go out there and get that extra bat in that lineup. Because again, you add that extra bat in this lineup, I'm looking at my favorite AL sleeper to make the World Series, but I just do not trust that offense enough. You need somebody hitting in front of Jose Ramirez in that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Ramirez is great, but he can't be the only bat in the lineup pretty much.
Yeah, so we'll see. I'm really excited for the playoffs this year, and as much as people are, putting in the Dodgers already as their favorite, putting in the Astros as their favorite, that's the best thing about the playoffs. You never know. So, we'll see. And, my prediction is, because it usually doesn't work out this way, but a lot of people are putting it this way, I think it's going to be a World Series where you're going to be like, wow, this team made it in there. Like, that's surprising. And I wouldn't be – there's a lot of good teams this year. Like there's the juggernaut and the Dodgers and the Astros, but there's a lot of teams where on a 3 or 5 game set, it'd be pretty damn close to fun starting pitches that they have. So I'm really excited to see that. Gunnar Henderson, though, man. This man, he's incredible. His first 4 games, he played third base, played shortstop, and he played second base, and he looked good at every single position. Like, you can't say that about a lot of guys. I feel like when a lot of these young guys come up and the manager throws them at a different position and they're like, all right, let's see where you work best or where you look. I feel like they're never that good at like any position. So that's why they're flipping them around. I feel like it's the complete opposite case with a guy like Gunnar. I feel like
he's so good at everything.
He's so good at everything. So let's see where he's the best at, because he can make it work at every other position. And I don't know if you saw that double play that they turned at second base a couple nights ago. This dude's cannon is insane. I don't know. It must be fun for the Orioles to make these decisions.
Yeah. I remember I was watching something with Justin Turner, and he said, I don't give a fuck about how strong your arm is. I care about just being able to throw the runner out by 1 step every single time. that is what you need to do. I don't care. It's more about the internal clock than it is about the arm strength. But what's beautiful about Gunnar Henderson is he has both. He's got the perfect internal clock. Every single runner I've seen him throw out is by one step. And it's just that, like you said, the arm's a cannon, an absolute cannon. And there's that coupled with his bat, his elite athleticism, just swinging from the left side of the plate. I literally think that he could be definitely an MVP level player in this league. I mean, the sky's the limit for Gunnar Henderson. I think he's got the bat of a guy like Corey Seager and the athleticism of literally the top tier athleticism. It's great to have him on the Orioles. I love watching the Orioles.
This might be big, and it is big. It's very big pedestal to live up to. But if I were to give, this is how much I like Gunnar Henderson. If I was to give this guy a pro comparison right now, I would say Nolan Arenado. I think that's what he could be. He's 21 years old. He's shown the defensive versatility. And I think once he sticks, and especially if he could stick at a position like third base, he's just going to be that next guy who can do it both sides. And for very long. I mean, Nolan Arenado just won, I think he's won 8 or 9 Gold Gloves in a row at third base, which is third behind Mike Schmidt and one other guy that I can't remember right now. But it's just like incredible. And it's like I feel like every year you're like, oh, Arenado won.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's going to happen with Gunnar. And it's high expectations again, but this dude's 21 years old and already looks like I'm going to be the man. So I'm really excited for him. And as we say every single episode, I'm really excited for the Baltimore Orioles.
They are like this podcast's baby. Like when the Orioles win a ring, we will be celebrating on whatever big street there is in Baltimore. I don't know what Baltimore does, but there's some kind of street there.
Oh, we're going to be there. We're going to be there.
Yep.
In our Adley Rutschman and our Gunnar Henderson jersey.
Yep.
But you have anything else for MLB today?
Yeah,
or?
I've got a couple other things. Just
go ahead.
The Cease no hitter I wanted to talk about got blown up right at the end. Yeah, and it broke. You could see it break his heart in real time. He knew he hung the pitch. It was a changeup right in the middle of the zone, and he just dropped right to his knees as he threw it. Man, I felt my soul get ripped out of my body. I was sitting there watching it. It sucks. I love Cease. It adds a little bit to whatever case he could have had for a Cy Young, but that race is already wrapped up. It's Verlander. So that was just sad to me.
Yeah, and you know what? This comes literally a season after Carlos Rendon lost his no-hitter with fucking 1 out to go. He literally hit, you know what? And I forget who he hit. It was one of his friends, too. It literally looked like the guy leaned into the pitch, too, which made it like what it was Perez. And, I remember Rendon literally said something to him. He was like, why the fuck did you lean in? Like, give it to me, And, I know you don't want to be the last out in the no-hitter, but I don't know. I feel like, man, you're going to lean in. Like, yesterday, I can't take anything away from him. I mean, he leads the AL in batting average right now. So that was probably, the worst guy to have up there to get your last out against. But
and to hang a pitch against him.
Yeah.
I mean, he deserved to lose the no-hitter. He got the nerves were there, but it hurts because I'm a Cease guy.
Yeah, and I like White Sox fans too. I mean, they are no bullshit fans. They hate Tony La Russa. They want the franchise sold, and
rightfully so.
They do not like Yasmani Grandal right now. So I mean, they have an $18 million club on that team. They have Yasmani in that club. They have they're still paying Dallas Keuchel $18 million a year. And they're paying one other guy $18 million a year right now who I can't think of. But I think it is just so funny. Like, the White Sox are just a funny team because, on paper, if you were – okay, let me give you this rundown. If you were to look at this team on the show, you'd be like,
oh, they're incredible.
This team's incredible. They're loaded at every position. They have a catcher at first base and second. They have everything. They have starting pitching. Oh, they have Liam Hendricks coming out the pen. They have Aaron Bummer coming out the pen. They have
an incredible prospect pool too. Like, there's just everything to love with this team except for Tony La Russa. Sorry, I hope he gets better. But
so actually, I have one thing to talk about, and this kind of reminded me of it. There's a good amount of players this season who I have been watching, and I'm like, you know what? I would love to see them on different teams. And one guy that comes to mind is Yoan Moncada. Because he's always been a guy who's been supposed to be really good. And he had a couple 2 years ago, we had a season where I was like, here we go. This is it. Next year, this is going to be his breakout. Nope. He's just never like fully breaking out. But the one thing that I will give him is every single year he's been in the league, his defense has gotten a hell of a lot better. His offense has been struggling this year, but I don't know. I feel like I would love to see a guy like that have a change of scenery. I'd love to see a guy like Gleyber Torres have a change of scenery. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you go on Yankees Twitter is brutal. Like they will call every single person out. They will say you do not deserve to live. And a lot of people do not like Gleyber Torres. I mean, his defense sucks. I will give it to them, but like when he makes an error, it's like when a kid makes an error on a field and he's just like checks out. You know, like he like literally just seems like he mentally checks out. And I feel like if he was to go to a smaller market, say like I don't know, say like the Rockies, you know, where he could use that power, and the Rockies could use anybody. I mean, like I feel like their fan base is basically just give us anyone you got. So I mean, like I don't know. I just feel like he's another guy who could really use a change of scenery, and especially with every single damn prospect the Yankees have, like he's a guy you could afford to give up. And I feel like you could still get a decent haul for him. Not like a huge haul, not many top 10 prospects, but you know, maybe like an 11, maybe 11 or 12. I mean, he's still really good offensively. I really like Carson Kelly, two guys from the Diamondbacks. I just want to see get a change of scenery, or Carson Kelly and Christian Walker this offseason. I think Christian Walker, you know, he's having a breakout year. He's pretty old though, but it'd be cool to see him in like on a winning team as a DH. I feel like that's really all he is. He'll never be anything. I think this might be his best year ever, but I'd still like to see him. You know, Diamondbacks get a little something for him. And Carson Kelly, he's always been a guy who's supposed to break out, and he never really has. His defense has always been pretty damn good. So his offense comes and goes. I just like to see him on another team. The Diamondbacks are just weird. Like they gotta really make this youth movement, in my opinion.
They've got probably the best top 3 prospects in the league, so they've got that moving for them. But
then they got a guy like Zach Gallen who has 4 years left of team control, and he's probably one of the best pitchers in the league. He has not a lot. He doesn't have that many innings, I guess, this year as a lot of other top guys. So that's probably why he's not getting consideration. But like, you have a lot of good pieces. You just gotta like make these moves to say, you know what, like let's actually go through a rebuild, a real one, and not pay 31-year-old pitchers to come play here.
yeah, I mean, Gallen, he's on an incredible tear right now, but like you said, they're just kind of like in the mediocre realm. You don't want to be there.
You do not want to be there.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready. So as we've done the past couple of weeks, we're going to be breaking down one division at a time. And this time we're going to the the AFC North. And I'm going to be honest, this is a very kind of a boring division. And as good teams, but I don't know. I feel like this division's the same all the time. It's competitive, but whatever. Chase, you want to have the honors? You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start it off. We do this kind of going off the over-unders, and I'm starting with Baltimore. I think you can take the over. They're at 9.5. I think this is the Lamar Jackson revenge tour. They had the most injured roster in football last year, but when Lamar was playing, they were 7-5, and he looked like an MVP candidate. I mean, I think there's a narrative going around that Lamar Jackson sucks and that he sucked last season, but I very distinctly remember about like week 6 or week 7 last season talking about Lamar Jackson as like an MVP or like he's like carrying this terrible team that's got all these injuries and he's just incredible. But I think now this season they're going to be a lot better. They're getting Marlon Humphrey back. They're getting Marcus Peters back, Ronnie Stanley, J.K. Dobbins. You get to add Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, Michael Pierce, the ghost of Kyle Fuller, if he's anything. And I'm really expecting a breakout year from Rashad Bateman. He was one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft last year. Greg Roman's their offensive coordinator, who I don't really trust him. Yeah, no. Again, alma mater from my high school, but dude's a bum. He can't coach. So literally the worst route trees I've ever seen in my life. Even then, I trust the Lamar Jackson, Rashad Bateman connection and just the talent that's there to overcome some flaws in the system. I think that if there's any kind of quarterback that can work around flaws in the system, it's Lamar Jackson. So I really expect this offense to have a great season. I think Lamar has a top 5 MVP season, and I think the defense is very good this year too. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like the Ravens this year. I just feel like they're one of those teams where that coaching staff is going to propel them even more than they are. I mean, I think this year they're going to get their identity back with their rushing attack. I mean, as you said, they're healthy again. They were the second most hurt team behind the Giants last year. And the Giants, whatever, with the Giants, they weren't going to be good anyway. But
It's their fault. They play at MetLife, man.
yeah, true. But one thing that I was like, wow, Ronnie Stanley has only played 7 games the past 2 years, and everyone is saying he's looking pretty damn healthy right now. And I feel like there's a lot. Like every season you go and you're like, he looks healthy. He looks healthy. We'll see. And if he can stay healthy, that is going to be ginormous for that offensive line. And as you said, they have J.K. Dobbins back. They have their other backup running back. He was hurt last year too. Gus Edwards back. Apparently, Mike Davis looks good for whatever that means. He always looks good in training camp. But you're going to have a healthy Lamar Jackson back on that offense. And as you said, you have Rashad Bateman. I think they're going to be definitely not a great passing team, but you have those two options where if you need to pass the ball, you can. But I think they're going to basically live and die by their rushing attack, which they have done the past couple of years. But as you said, I love that secondary. I think that they added, with Mark, they added that safety duo this year with Kyle Hamilton and Williams, who are both young players, obviously. But that front seven is just like funny because it's like old. And, I just feel like what they did this offseason, honestly, doing what they did with that secondary is going to help that front seven be able to be a little more creative, obviously, and like have time to get to the quarterback. But if it wasn't for that secondary, I'd be a little more worried if I was a Ravens fan. And another guy who I was wrong out of the draft, Patrick Queen. This dude has looked horrible, and like he was supposed to be like this next dude on that defense this year and the past couple of years, and he hasn't. So if he looks as bad as he did last year, I'd be a little nervous if I were a Ravens fan just for that. But I do think they're going to win the division. I have them going 11-6. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, I've got them at, I think, 11-6, 10-7, somewhere around there. But I think Odafe Owe is going to have a pretty good year this season off the edge. I think that could be very big for them because they've got they just brought in Pierce on the interior, but they've got, what's his name? Calais Campbell, who's very old. But you've got those guys on the interior. You need some juice on the edge, which, speaking of juice on the edge, I think we can move to the Bengals now, who they are set at 9.5. I think that coming off a 10-7 season last year, going to the Super Bowl, I think 9.5 feels a little bit too low considering they improved their team. But the one thing that I'm a little bit worried about with them, like I was saying, is a juice off the edge. They've got no young guys off the edge to get pressure. I mean, they're just relying on Trey Hendrickson to get 15 sacks again. DJ Reader is incredible in the middle, but off the other side, you've got I think it's Sam Hubbard. So I really think they could make a move for a great or just a good young pass rusher. I mean, we see guys like that, like Yannick Ngakoue, get traded every season. So I think that could really help them. But I think they're better this season after adding Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, Lyle Collins, and completely reshaping the right side of their offensive line. They're better. I think they'll probably finish around 11 wins, so you can take the over, but I don't think they get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I have them going 10-7, but I just have a few. I love their offense. I love what they did for their offense. I love that they finally fixed that offensive line for Joe Burrow. I just don't like Zach Taylor. I think his offense was very bland last season. And, I think Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow will be great again this season. As I said, but I think it's going to be a little easier to figure out. And I think, we have a full offseason of tape now. And again, on that defense, one thing that Eli Apple, I don't like him. I don't think he can be your cornerback too. And I think that's what's going to hurt him a little bit. I don't really like their defense that much. I think it's definitely not bad, but I don't think it's that great. And as you said, are you really trusting what's his name? Trey Hendrickson to have 10 sacks again in 10 games. And there's a lot of things that happened for that team last year that just went incredibly well. I mean, basically every person on that starting defense or starting offense didn't get hurt. They obviously helped that offensive line. I'm not really expecting any regressions in the offense, but I am expecting regressions in the defense. And I think the Ravens are going to end up winning the division.
I agree that the Ravens probably win the division, but I do like the addition of Dax Hill on defense in the secondary.
He was a good draft pick.
I like Hill, and like I said, I think they're probably in the market for another edge rusher because I think that really puts them over the edge defensively. Because on all I kind of group defense on 4 positions, it's secondary, linebackers, interior D-line, and then edge rushers. Because those are the 4 positions every team, or 4 groups that every team keeps. Because every team does it a little bit differently. Those are the basics. I think they are very, very strong at every single position except for edge rusher. That's like they just need that one piece because their linebackers, Pratt, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Logan Wilson, who's very good. That's a good group. They've got Jesse Bates in the secondary, who's back and he's great. They've got Dax Hill. They've got Awuzie. I know you don't like Eli Apple, but he's a serviceable cornerback too for right now. He was fine last season. He started every game, and I know he gets a lot of hate because they're the highlight tips of him getting cooked, but he's a fine and serviceable cornerback too. So you've got all those positions. I think DJ Reader is great. I really think they're just one little piece away from being a top 10 defense again, and that's where they were last season. Their defense is what carried them to the Super Bowl, not their offense, which is why I think that if their offense can take another step, which I think it really can, then we're really in line for a better season than they had last season.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they're gonna have to get very lucky again when it comes to injuries. And I feel like that's one thing that every team, a lot of teams, they come into the year, they're supposed to be great, and then there's always that one team who just gets shattered by injuries, and they were lucky to be the one team who didn't. And I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. I think he has MVP in his resume sometime down the line, but I don't know. That defense isn't top 10 to me right now. I don't know, but they could prove me wrong. I just have them fighting. I think they're going to be the top wild card team.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to say about the Bengals right now is T. Higgins is probably going to have a better season than Jamar Chase because I've got the advanced stats here provided by NFL Savant, and on first down, or really any downs, because T. Higgins would line up on the left, Jamar Chase would line up on the right. On first down, they would average 27 yards per attempt to T. Higgins on the deep left when they would throw it to him. On second down, 15.8 yards per attempt. On third down, 17.14 yards per attempt. And then you go over to Jamar Chase, 13.95 on first down, 13.36 on second down, and 17.08 on third down. All of those numbers are much lower. So the one thing that I got to say, probably for fantasy purposes, is T. Higgins, he has a chance to outperform Jamar Chase, considering when he got the ball last season, he was more productive.
Yeah, I love T. Higgins. I think he's one of the most underrated wide receivers, but he's having a weird offseason. I mean, he literally didn't play in one preseason game. He hasn't been in a lot of practices. So, I don't really know what's going on there. I mean, there's been nothing saying that he's not going to play week 1 or anything, but it's just a little something to look at, I feel like. But I really do like T. Higgins. Apparently Hayden Hurst has been looking pretty damn good at
I love Hayden Hurst.
Training
He was
camp,
a terrible draft pick, but he's a good player.
And that was such a Falcons draft pick, though. What he was 25 or 26-year-old
it was the Ravens.
Or Ravens, yeah. In the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a cool story. I'm a huge Hayden Hurst guy, but from a draft perspective.
If I'm not wrong, he had 3 college touchdowns in his whole career, too. And he got drafted in the first round.
It was kind of just he is, but he's a 3rd or 4th round guy. But probably but I don't know. I just feel like it was one of those. I feel like the NFL was all right, draft this guy so we can say a cool story in the first round when people are watching. But you know what? I think he's going to be a touchdown guy this year, a guy in the end zone who, you're going to have to worry about Jamar Chase. You're going to have to worry about T. Higgins. You're going to have to worry about Joe Mixon. Let's start to this guy right up the middle. So that's going to be something
better than CJ Uzomah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one thing. That was one signing where I was all right, let's relax a little bit. When CJ went to the Jets, everyone was oh, they got this great target now. I feel like Hayden Hurst will have the same type of production. I mean, number 4 option on the offense now. I mean, I think he's going to put up I think Hurst will put up the best numbers in his career because of that. That was a great, very underrated move by the Bengals.
I agree.
If I'm not wrong, I could be wrong. Did O.J. Howard sign with them? Or did he sign with them?
He just got cut by the Bills.
Yeah, but he signed somewhere after. I think he did.
That was a wild cut by the Bills. That cost him $4 million just to have him in training camp.
The Texans. So that Texans, yeah. But yeah, that was weird by the Bills.
Tight end 1.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not Texans are the Texans, but I was weird by the Bills. I thought that was a good move, honestly, when it happened. I thought it was like, oh, they have a pretty good tight end duo, but I guess not anymore. Moving on to the Steelers.
Browns.
The
You want to do
Browns?
Browns are
I
next
get,
in the over under.
oh, okay, okay. I can go Browns first.
They got 9.5 on their over under. I think we're
Yeah, that
pretty in sync on this one. Take the fucking
do
under.
if you are making a bet this season before the season starts, put $1 million on the Browns under. There
I don't
is
know about
no.
I don't know
I would
about
put
that.
$1 million if I was what's his name, Mattress Matt. I would put $1 million
Okay.
on that because like in what world is this team winning 9 to 10 games? Not 10 games. I don't see it.
They
And you know
won
what?
8 last season, and I don't think they got much better. I think they stayed about the same with the talent on their roster. And you want to talk about Deshaun Watson thinking they got better with him. We'll talk about that come week 11. But I honestly, we'll see what Deshaun Watson looks like. We haven't seen this guy play football in 2 years, so he's going to come back at the playoff stretch and win you a bunch of games. I don't think this team got better over the offseason. I'm not willing to bet that they got 2 extra wins better. I think that Myles Garrett last season had probably the best season from an edge rusher that you could really imagine. He just couldn't win Defensive Player of the Year because of TJ Watt, and he's just incredible. I
He's got the
didn't
KD
add
effect.
much. Yeah, yeah. But like Amari Cooper is the only viable weapon on that team. The interior defensive line is absolutely atrocious. It's horrible. There's maybe 2 NFL players. They were drafting 3rd round and 4th round rookies to start on their interior defensive line next to Myles Garrett. Their linebacking core is probably the worst in the league. I mean, not one player I trust there. Brissett starting at quarterback. Okay. Jacoby Brissett. If you
Their
want to bet on
defense,
that, fine.
their defense is very like 3 to 4 players.
It's star heavy. It's very, very top heavy, but you cannot be like that. Last season, the team that reminded me of is the Chargers. The Chargers allowed I think it was 51% completion percentage or like conversion percentage on 3rd down. I think that we're going to see a very similar team like that to the Browns this season. They're going to be in a lot of shootouts where their defense is just allowing a lot of bad plays. And like you can't win games when that's happening. Not with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Like when you think of shootout and like you're like Jacoby Brissett's my quarterback, like I don't know. I feel like last year when I was watching that Dolphins game where I think he threw 3 picks if I'm not wrong. I felt like I was like, that's all I needed to see. Like that was the end of the Brissett. Maybe he could be a QB discussion or starting QB in this league discussion. And you know what? Like I'm looking at the Browns schedule right now, and their first 3 games are a pretty good walkthrough. They go Panthers, Jets, Steelers, and then they got Falcons week 4. But week 5 through 8, they have the Chargers, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals, and then they have a bye week. And then they have the Dolphins, Bills, Bucks. Like that's crazy,
Yeah.
and that's with Brissett as your starting QB. And I think that stretch is going to kill that team. I could see them starting 2-1, 3-0, and Brown's Twitter is going to be like, "Watch when we get Deshaun Watson back. Watch what happens." And then when Deshaun Watson comes back, I could see them maybe having 1 or 2 more wins from those tweets when that happens. So they're a team that I just have no faith in, if I'm being honest.
See, I actually expected to look back and see that this team was a horrible defensive team last season, but they ranked about 13th in around that area in every major category. I mean, they allowed it was bottom 3 in passing yards per game. So to say this team would get into a shootout would be a little bit, based on last season, would be a little bit confusing to most people. But when you look at the makeup of the team, they are going to want to run the ball and control the game a lot. But I think that I just don't trust them to do that with the talent on their team and the defense that they have, because you give the ball up and you're pretty much starting down 7-0 pretty much at the beginning of the game with this team. I really think this is going to be a really, really bad defense this season. I think that's all it comes down to. I'm projecting them to win 7 games, go 7-10.
I haven't.
Like their defense, like I said, their defense was fine last season. It was good last season, but I think that the reason it was like that is because they were able to control the games and control the clock a lot. And they're not going to be able to do that with Brissett at quarterback. he is a downgrade from Baker Mayfield. I don't care how injured Mayfield was last season.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the only things that really stand out to me, I think they have a very underrated cornerback duo in Ward and Newsome. I really like that duo back there. They're both pretty
Injury
young,
prone.
injury prone though. So I mean, like the whole team is kind of just like injury prone. Like I could literally see Amari Cooper being out by like week 4, if I'm being honest. I mean, he's going to be like all eyes on Amari Cooper, and these past couple of years, it's always been like, oh, Amari's coming back. I mean, I know he's been having to share the ball with like CeeDee Lamb and Cedric Wilson and a little bit of Gallup and either that rushing attack. Like, you know, they had Schultz last year, but like, I don't know. I'm kind of just like, I think Amari Cooper, I'm not trying to dumb it down a little bit, but to dumb it down, I think the rest of his career, his peak will be like 85, 86, maybe. Like that's all I see from him.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's
I feel like
that's like peak.
we've
That's
seen
like
the best of Amari Cooper already. We're not going to see an improved Amari Cooper in Cleveland. And what wide receivers have ever gone to Cleveland to improve their career?
It's the place to die. It is the
It
place
really is.
to die. I mean, Odell Beckham was like on death's door, and then like the Rams saved them.
And the one thing that I wanted to talk about while we're on the subject of Cleveland is the fact that I don't think that players are going to be able to fully buy into an organization that just gave Deshaun Watson that contract. We hear a lot of people outside of the organization on different teams speaking pretty much against Deshaun Watson kind of and condemning the things that he did. I don't think that sentiment is lost within the Browns organization. I think that it's still there. They just can't talk about it because they're under contract. But just because they can't talk about it doesn't mean that they can't feel it still. They can't, like, that stuff still affects them. I think that's going to affect the way that their team comes together, the team camaraderie. Like, that's a huge thing. Teams need to genuinely have chemistry. I think that bringing Deshaun Watson into a building just kills the chemistry of the team.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I feel like one thing I always look forward to as a fan. I mean, it's kind of a little off subject, but it touches on it. Is one thing that I always look forward to around Christmas with the NFL is seeing what the quarterback bought their offensive lineman for Christmas. It's always like fun to look at and just like, oh, they got him this, they got him this watch, they got him this car, whatever it was. But like, I don't know. I just feel like you're not going to be seeing that this Christmas with the Browns. And I feel like a lot of those big like offensive lineman dudes who I feel like offensive linemen are always like the best guys on the team, for being honest. Family guy. I don't know. If 2 or 3 of those guys are family guys on this offensive line, that's just my big point. I could see them letting this dude get hit, letting this dude take a couple sacks. And you know what? Like, I know they're playing to win the game, but if I'm being honest, if I'm here to protect this guy, like, that's your job. You're this dude's bodyguard. And I'm not trying to protect a serial rapist, especially a serial rapist who just got rewarded for it. So, I mean, like, I don't know. As you said, I can see this team being the NFL's biggest disappointment, one of their biggest disappointments this year, at least.
I have just written in big bold letters here, back to the Browns this season. It's
exactly.
They're going to go right back to the Browns.
They had their one playoff game like 2 years ago against the Steelers. So, you know,
and
we'll
then
see
they traded
again.
the quarterback that brought them there. You have one. I don't care how good Baker Mayfield is or how bad he is. This has been a bottom feeder franchise. The standard for the Browns is different from the standard for the rest of the teams. They needed to be competitive, and they just completely blew it up. They completely blew it up when they got competitive.
And you know what? If you were to go on Brown's Twitter and say that right now, they would kill you for that because they think they're genuine.
Well, they're in denial.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like as a fan, of my teams, I'm always like, if they're gonna suck, they're gonna suck, or if they're gonna be middle of the pack, like they're gonna be middle of the pack. Because I can see that, but I don't know. The saddest thing with this, wrapping up with the Browns, the saddest thing I see with their fan base is just those people out there defending this dude. You know, so acting like it didn't happen because. I guarantee you, if this dude got traded to the Falcons or whatever other fucking teams are in the mix for him, I feel like they'd have a much different change of heart. And you know, it's sad to say, but a lot of NFL teams, a lot of NFL fans, if this guy was to come on their team, they would have switched their opinion on this dude just like that. And it's kind of sad to see that a sport could do that to some person. But anyway, moving on to the last team in this division, and on my frank opinion, the most boring team in the division this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers. And the number one thing that I have them coming in third in the division, actually. I have them going 8 and 9. I could see 7 and 10, but I don't know. I just feel like
Mike Tomlin has never won has never won less than 8 games in his career. Never
yes,
once in his career.
I know that. I know that. There's all that for me, and I love Mike Tomlin, and that's the reason why I don't see this team being like totally bad, to be honest with you. Because when I look at that secondary, and I could probably name you one or two guys, and I mean I'm not secondary. I can name you Minka Fitzpatrick. They have a star in there, but their cornerbacks right now are Cameron Sutton and Levy Wallace. Those are their quarterback 1 and 2. And you know what?
Well, they've got Akilo Witherspoon. They've got a bunch of cornerback twos. Like they're not bad players in the secondary. They're decent players, but they don't have a shutdown corner. And they kind of lost that in Joe Hayden, who they were kind of holding on to a little bit too long. But I think their pass rush and their front seven is really going to help with that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see something from Terrell Edmonds this year. I mean, this guy was supposed to be like a big guy for them. He's 25 years old, and he still can show it, but he had a pretty down year last year. And that was one guy I always thought was going to be pretty decent coming into the league. And I don't know. I just look at this team, and, there's a lot of names on here where I was like, I thought they were going to be a little better than they were, at least. And like Devin Bush, I mean, Miles Jack was always pretty good. I thought that was a pretty good signing for them, but I think TJ Watt's going to be pretty good again this year. I know he got hurt, but I'm going to be honest. I don't really know the severity of it, if he's going to be out week 1 or whatever, but that again could be huge for them. But the main thing is this offense. They have 3 quarterbacks, and I don't really think any Steelers fans are really pushing for Mason Rudolph, but you have 2 quarterbacks where a lot of guys are saying, let's run it back with Mitch. Let's see what he can do. And that's what I would do, honestly, if I was the Steelers. He looks pretty good in preseason. He looked pretty good in camp. But you know what? I'm not the biggest Kenny Pickett fan. He looks pretty good too. But I swear, I mean, I'm not a hater, but I really think if we were to put this dude against real NFL players, not the 3rd or 4th stringers, it would look a lot different and a lot more predictable. And I just think the biggest thing on this Steelers roster that's going to hurt them is the quarterback play. And, you could say that for a lot of rosters, but like, especially Steelers, I mean, they had the worst quarterback in the league last year. And I think they're going to upgrade a little bit, but like, I don't know. I just don't see it with them.
I hated Kenny Pickett as the first quarterback taken in the draft, but I will admit he looked fine in preseason. He just was not a best quarterback in the class caliber player. Like the ceiling with Kenny Pickett is that he's just an average quarterback, because he's not an NFL plus quarterback in any facet of the game. He doesn't have a plus arm strength. He's not plus mobility. He's not great. He's not exceptional at reading the field. I mean, it's a questionable plus at this point in his career, but he's also 25 years old already. Like he's better than most rookie quarterbacks at reading the field, but he's also 3 or 4 years older than most rookie quarterbacks. So that's something to keep in mind. So he's just not even close to a first-round quarterback prospect, which is why you're not going to get that kind of production from him, I don't think. And he's going to be held to that kind of standard, which is why I think at the end of the day, he's going to be looked at as a bust. And I think that I agree with you. You should probably go with Mitch Trubisky. And I like everything that they're building with the Steelers, except for with that quarterback. They've got a work-in-progress offensive line with a couple of young pieces. They've got so many great receivers, so many great running backs, so many great I love Freiermuth. Their defense has some stars on it. Pickens is great. Pickens is incredible. He's probably the best wide receiver in the class. He just dropped for character concerns. And in the NFL as a wide receiver, who cares? So really. I really everything except for the Steelers, or everything except for Kenny Pickett, makes me want to bet on the Steelers, which is why there's such a confusing team to predict for me.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, if you're looking at an NFL team and you're like, I don't mean to keep going with this, but you said bet on a team. If you're looking to put money on a team to win the Super Bowl, or you're looking at why would this team stand out, and your number one reason not to bet on them is your quarterback. I mean, that's just like my first out. Because realistically, I can't see Mitchell Trubisky winning you a Super Bowl. Realistically, I can't see Kenny Pickett winning you a Super Bowl, especially in year 1. And like, I don't know. I think they're going to be Mike Tomlin is going to get the best out of this team. And I just can't really – I think they're going to miss the playoffs by 2 games.
I think they're a safe bet to take the over and not do anything after that, which is why
What was their over on there again?
7.5.
Yeah.
Which is why we came into this pretty much saying that they are a boring team to talk about because, like, yeah, there's a lot
Middle
of
of the
great
road.
talent. And when you're looking at the roster, you're saying, how could this team be boring with TJ Watt, who just set the NFL record in sacks, and George Pickens, who's such an exciting young player and a first round quarterback and a first round running back last season who was great. And so many of these great weapons like Chase Claypool and all these other players, Deontay Johnson, they're boring because they don't have a path to real success. They're doing what they've been doing for the past better part of a decade. The Steelers, they sit at a good team and a borderline great team, but they never get over that hump.
Yeah. So I mean, in a division this year where I could see, I mean, you got the Bengals and the Ravens as like our 1 and 2. If the Steelers were to make the playoffs, and especially with that division, I will be shocked out of my mind, and I will take the L. But I just don't see a world where that happens.
I absolutely agree.
So my final standing predictions are Ravens, Bengals. I do have the Steelers over the Browns, but then I have the Browns on 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. I mean, I feel like actually no, I'm gonna go Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Steelers, or Steelers, Browns.
Yeah, I get it. I think it go either way for first in that division. I just love the Ravens. I don't love it, but I like the coaching staff a lot more than I like the Bengals. Again, I'm just not that huge on Zach Taylor.
Understandably so.
But that's really all for the NFL today. But moving on to the NBA real quick, we have that one big trade, obviously, Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we all know I am not really the biggest Donovan Mitchell guy. I think his defensive liabilities have showed a lot, but I'm going to be honest. I thought this was going to just be a Knicks trade that they somehow fucked up and they gave this guy a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. Another Carmelo situation. This was the best situation that could have possibly happened. I love this trade. I love this trade for Donovan Mitchell. I love this trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And like a lot of times when you see a team give up a lot for a player, the number one concern is always like depth or like they fucked up their future. This is their future. Like they're playing with this young core right now. I love it. They have Darius Garland. They have D-Mitch. They have Okoro. They have Mobley Allen. I think they have the best interior defense in the league coming into next year. I think Mobley's going to be great. We know Jaron Allen is a great rim protector. And I don't know. I see this team as my 3rd or 4th team in the East. I think Mitchell and Garland are going to be such a headache to guard in that backcourt. And I don't know. I just feel like Donovan Mitchell going to the Knicks would have just been detrimental to his career because I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like they would have kind of been on the same level as the Jazz, and he would have been like, at least I'm in New York, but I'm still going to play the same level of defense, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like being on like a team like the Cavaliers where, like you might be seen as the best player on that team to a lot of people, but like it's questionable. And I feel like on the Jazz, like he was that number one option. But now like you're going to a team where I feel like you're going to be playing a different type of basketball. And there's going to be a different type of, you have to carry yourself a different way, I feel like. And I think he's going to show progressions in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. The Donovan Mitchell trade, I almost called it the Colin Sexton trade. The Jazz got 5 picks in return. That is, according to the Stepien rule, the most you can get in return for a trade in the NBA. So they gave up the absolute max package. They gave up the first-round pick Ochai Agbaji from last year. They gave up Sexton. They gave up Lauri Markkanen. So this was a huge package for Colin Sexton, for Donovan Mitchell. But is it worth it? It is really the question. The other players that have been traded for this big of a package are guys like Paul George, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Those are the only other players in recent memory that have been traded for 5 first-round picks. And as great as Donovan Mitchell is, he's never made the All-NBA team. At this point, those other guys were multiple-time All-NBA players. And that's not even mentioning the Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen assets, who are both really good, like positive NBA players. So this might not be a trade that's 1-for-1 worth it for the Cavs, but they're not trying to win trades. Kobe Altman isn't trying to win trades. He's trying to win a championship. And I think that adding Donovan Mitchell to this team is an absolutely perfect fit, like you were saying. The only issue with Donovan Mitchell throughout his career has been the defensive production. But the thing with Donovan Mitchell was he was drafted to be a defensive player. He's 6'1" short, but he's got a 6'10" wingspan and elite athleticism. He can play defense when he's engaged. The only issue is he was never engaged in Utah. So, like you were saying with the Knicks, I think he probably would have gone there for his career to die, because when you go to the Knicks, you're really more focused about scoring offensively and being this great offensive player. But I think the Cavs are a perfect place for him to grow into the defensive player he was supposed to be. I mean, last season, players shot 11% above their average when they were guarded by Donovan Mitchell. That's terrible. But I think that when he's engaged, players won't be blowing by him anymore. And if they are, they're blowing by him to Evan Mobley and to Jared Allen. Like, the way that this Cleveland Cavaliers team is built is so perfect for a guy like Donovan Mitchell that maybe he is not one for one worth all of that, all those picks and all those assets. But I think at the end of the day, they are probably putting themselves into a much better position after getting Donovan Mitchell than they were before. And no other team that was in the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes could say that about themselves, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with you. This was the perfect trade for both sides. And you know, another guy that I'd love to see them add to this team, because I think the one thing that they could use is like a bench big guy who could just get rebounds and just like a menace. I would really love to see Montrezl Harrell on this Cavs bench.
They have no more.
Playing.
They have no more money. No more money.
Yeah,
they're broke. That's the other thing I want to talk about.
I don't think do you think Montrezl Harrell is going to be off once that much? I feel like he could take he's not signed. That's the way I look at it. No,
if you could get him for a minimum. If you could get him for a minimum, but the issue is you added 5 years, $163 million with Donovan Mitchell after signing Darius Garland to 5 years, $193 million, while having Jared Allen on the hook for 5 years, $100 million. Then you got the Rubio contract, the LeVert contract. You've got the Evan Mobley contract that you're going to have to pay him an astronomical number in 2-3 years. And then you also have Kevin Love's $28 million still on the books. They have just nobody right now or they've got no money to make any moves. They just spent their max slot. The only thing that I could see for them to add a big or some bench pieces is to move that Kevin Love contract and maybe split up the $28 million into like a $7 million contract, an $8 million contract, and like another $8 million contract or something like that. Just get a few more players out of the Kevin Love $28 million.
Man, I love Kevin Love, though, on that Cleveland Cavaliers team. I think he is just such a Cavs player. And the other thing I look at, they definitely are like out of money this season. But Rubio, Kevin Love, and Karis LeVert are all off of their contracts after this year. So that's not a huge concern to me. But I guess if you're looking into this year, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like the depth that they have right now, if you were to add just like one more guy, and it's not like a huge valuable guy you even need. You just need a guy who I feel like can get boards, play decent interior defense for 15 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game. I think they're right there, you know? And another big piece that this is all going to come down to is Okoro. Like, can he make that leap? Can he start shooting the three consistently? Because his 3-point percentage has gone up the past 2 seasons by like 5%. Still wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. So, I mean, like, that's something I definitely have to look for. And I know if Okoro can make a decent leap, I'm not saying he has to be like an all-star. I'm saying he has to be a pretty good role player. I look at that team and I'm like, wow, like this team, if they hit what they're supposed to do, if Darius Garland keeps getting better, if Donovan Mitchell finally decides that defense is part of basketball, if Amon Mobley just keeps producing and getting better, as I think he will. He was only a rookie last year. And if Jared Allen is just Jared Allen, because I love Jared Allen. I love the game he plays. He's been playing the same game since he was a rookie. I don't know. I think this team could be a finals sleeper. You know, there's 3 teams that I would take over them right now. I would take the Bucks purely for Giannis, which I'm going to be honest. I think their depth is a little overrated. The Bucks. Like I love Giannis. I feel like he just has that LeBron effect. Like you take Giannis off that roster, you're talking the Bucks maybe sneak it into the playoffs, and you know, like that's huge. And maybe not sneaking, but like 6th, 7th seed. and that's kind of sneaking. But like, I could see the Sixers and the Celtics. I don't think the Heat are that great anymore, to be honest. They were literally Jimmy Butler in the playoffs and a little bit of Bam. So I don't know. I'm not the biggest Heat guy, to be honest with you.
They need to make a huge move this offseason, and they did.
They didn't, they didn't. They have that Kyle Lowry contract still. Like, and, apparently he got skinnier and he got a little less thick back there, but like, what's that gonna do? That takes away his powers. Like, I just feel like that's all it's gonna do. So like I don't know. I'm just not the biggest Heat guy. So like, we'll see. And if I was gonna give you my, it does. It takes. That's where the juices are kept. But like, if I'm giving like my top 5 seeds right now, I guess I'm not in any order, but I'm saying like the Celtics, the Sixers, the Cavs, the Bucks, and give me another team. I guess the Heat. Like I'll say they're a 5 seed. Like I'm not saying they're a top.
I feel like we're missing somebody in that though.
Me too. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Maybe the Bulls, but like I think the Bulls were a little bit of a fluke last year too, if I'm being quite honest.
A fluke as in they went too farther than they were supposed to go?
A fluke as people were saying this team could.
They were better than
they for a finals.
I think the issue with the Bulls was people were looking at DeMar DeRozan as a top 5 player in the NBA at one point because he had that stretch where he had been a top 5 player. But the issue with DeMar DeRozan in the playoffs is real. We see it every season. Yeah.
And you can't live or die by the mid-game and mid-range game. As cool as he makes it look and as cool as like the highlights are. And this is another thing that, I feel like we both agree on. There is a huge, like this is like I remember last season there was a debate where if you would take DeMar DeRozan over Jimmy Butler. And I remember seeing it on Kick's Instagram account and I was like, what? And it was 70-30 that people would take DeMar DeRozan over Jimmy Butler. And that is just remarkable to me because like, I don't know, I feel like Jimmy Butler's been a playoff performer. We've always seen this. And a regular season performer is a hell of a lot different than the guy who could do it in the playoffs. And I think DeMar DeRozan will always just be that dude who will do a 360 dunk, slam it in the regular season. He'll be the MVP with the eyeball emojis on Bleacher Report, and like then they'll lose in the first round of the playoffs. So like that's really it. And you know what? Maybe we'll see a leap from Zach LaVine. Maybe Lonzo Ball will play more than 5 games this season. Maybe Billy Donovan won't be terrible this season, but like. Again, as I've said, one of my least favorite things in sports is when a team relies on a lot of ifs, and the Bulls are a team that relies on a lot of ifs to me.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say, well, if Patrick Williams can grow into what he could be, then, but that's another if. If Vucevic comes back to what he could be, I agree with you. Too many things about that team to worry about. Definitely true. I'll bet on the more safe commodities like the Celtics, and I definitely want to say the Sixers are a much safer commodity to go far. I think the ceiling or the floor for them is a second round, easily second round. But I think
the Sixers.
I think that. Yeah. Well, not even. I think they're the duo with Harden, Maxey, the trio with Harden, Maxey, and Embiid was by far the most effective duo in the NBA last season when they played together, trio. But yeah, I really think that a full season of that plus a healthy James Harden. We could see some pretty strong seasons from the Sixers here. And
the one thing that I just have to see from the Sixers, and maybe they'll address it with the trade deadline. Maybe a guy like Bassey can step up, but like
backup big for Joel.
You need to have a backup big for this guy. And you know what? Sixers fans have seen this every single year in the playoffs. He gets hurt. Somehow he gets a cold or something. He breaks it. It's like, and I love Joel Embiid. Like I'm not hating on him at any means, but like we need a guy. Like Andre Drummond was perfect. They missed their opportunity to bring this guy back, and like he's a guy who went to the Bulls actually. But like it's just I need to see that before I could fully commit to a team like the Sixers because I just think that is one thing that you need to commit to. You need a backup who could play 20 minutes in the playoffs if need be, Yeah. And they don't have that right now. Maybe like I love Paul Reed. I don't love Bassey. I think he'd be decent, but like, I don't know. That's the one thing. I think the additions of PJ Tucker and Daniel House will be really good because that bench unit was shitty. And like, I don't know. I think James Harden's going to be a hell of a lot. Well, I think he's going to be James Harden again, if I'm being honest. And I think he's here to prove it. And I think even like, I don't know, you could disagree, you could agree with me with this, but like, I think ever since he's come to Philly, he's become a little more like vocal in the point where he's like, I want to win. And like, I don't know where this whole like mindset came from that I'm not a guy who wants to win. And like taking this contract cut and like all these little things, like he looks like he's in great shape again already. And like he threw that cake in the ocean from little baby at his birthday party, like all these things. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he is in it to win it. And a lot of people overreacted to Joel Embiid, like saying he says stupid things. I love Joel, but he says some stupid things sometimes. But we thought James Harden was this guy, but he wasn't. Blah blah blah. Like Joel is just an emotional guy who wants to win, and I think James Harden sees that, and he knows he's not saying it in any mean way. He just lost in the playoffs, and he knew he was going to see the second round jokes on Twitter again. So as you did say, I think healthy, like no injuries on this roster. And I'm not trying to use the word if, because I don't think the Sixers are a big if team. I think there's like maybe two ifs, if anything. But like the big if is Joel Embiid, and if
that's
he
the
can stay
thing.
healthy, and
they don't have a lot of ifs. They just have the big one.
they have
You
the
just
big
need
if.
you need the one thing to go right. The only thing is it's never gone right for them at this point. So you can't. It's hard to bet on something that's never happened. But then again, with every other team, it feels like you're betting on a bunch of other things that may or may not happen. So like every team's got their things
Every
that
team
could
has
go
their
one
ifs.
way or the other. Exactly. Yeah. But like I was saying earlier, I feel like the Sixers, they've got a little bit less than other teams, but they are just slightly bigger.
I have a question for you, and we can wrap it up like this.
All right.
If you're the Sixers GM, if you're Daryl Morey, you're sitting there, and you get a phone call, and I don't really have a center on the mind right now, but what would you be willing to give up for a backup center? Like, would you be willing to give?
No. Genuinely, I feel like Shake Milton would be like a very perfect trade piece for a lot of teams. And I feel like we haven't seen the end of the trade market this offseason, which is something that's a little bit confusing. The Jazz, they still have to blow up. Like they've done their first two trades, but there's still a lot of players on that roster that they built to be a playoff team. Jordan Clarkson, exactly. Conley, all these guys, they've got to go. So I feel like we're going to see those guys kind of set the trade market. But I feel like Shake Milton will be good for a team that strikes out on Jordan Clarkson because there are going to be teams interested in him. And I feel like backup center is a position that is almost every team's got a guy that can fill that role, except for whatever reason, the Sixers. And they've had it. They just keep letting them walk.
Yeah. And I mean, what was it? Shake Milton has always showed those like little flashes, and like,
of course,
and like some NBA GMs live and die by that type of stuff. So like I could definitely see that. I definitely agree with you, and especially since they brought in what's his name, from Memphis, Melton this offseason. Like there's really not a big role for him this year, I don't think. And I think
we already have a Melton. We don't need a Milton.
Yeah, that was good. We have Melton, no Milton. So Melton and Milton. That'd be actually pretty cool if they could be a cool duo because that would sell T-shirts for the Sixers. But I don't know. I just think I agree with you. If you could move Milton and like somehow get yourself a pretty damn good backup big, that erases the ifs for me for the Sixers. And the only other if is healthy, and that's an if for every team in sports. If they can stay healthy, like you can't really count that as a huge if, but like with Joel Embiid's history, especially in the playoffs, you could absolutely count that as an if.
LeBron James got hurt last season, it wasn't last season. It was the season before where he tore his groin. And if LeBron James can get hurt, anybody can get hurt. But like every team, like you said, has those kind of ifs.
Yeah. So I mean, like you can't really look at that as much. And you know what? I'm really excited for the NBA this season because one thing that I love that is finally like kind of getting away from is like the super teams. And you know what? Like, I remember seeing things where like, this is going to be awesome. Like, we're going to have this rivalry for 3 years. Fuck that. Like, you knew going into the playoffs what was going to happen. And you know what? We saw that this year because NBA viewership went up so much in the playoffs because, like, I'm going to be honest, if the Cavs and the Warriors were still in the finals, and we got the Warriors still, but it was a different Warriors not completely, but a little different. Um, I would have watched, but like I
Kevin
would have
Durant
knew it was
ruined it.
gonna happen.
Like
What
I
do you
know
say?
it's a joke. Kevin Durant did ruin it. Like I went back the other day when I was having a conversation with my dad, and I looked at the viewership because he was trying to tell me, oh, in the 1980s it was there was so many more viewers, and I was like, well, it's relative. But I looked at the 2016 2017 finals when it was before Kevin Durant got there, and those years they were averaging 21 million per finals game. And then after the season that Kevin Durant arrived, it shot down to 14 million. Like those super teams, they were good in theory, and they in theory could have produced some good basketball games, but they didn't. And it was really a detriment to the NBA. And now we're seeing them move away from that as some policies start getting put into place that start to prevent that. And really, some teams start to say, well, it didn't work anyway. So why are we
Yeah,
trying it now?
and you know what? Like it worked with the Warriors because like that was perfect. Like they had the perfect super team, and like it wasn't fun. It was never fun to watch. It was never fun to
No, it
watch.
was. The Warriors were fun to watch.
I don't in the finals. I'm talking strictly finals. I feel like I knew it was going to happen. I knew they
Well,
were going to
now
win. The
after Kevin
only
Durant.
fun game. Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm saying with KD.
Okay.
With
Okay.
KD. I'm not. No, before KD, I love the Warriors. I
Mhm.
still love Steph Curry. I love Clay. I love Draymond. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the 3 year stretch where you knew where they were going to make the finals, and you know what? They probably would have won 3 years in a row if Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson didn't get hurt. I'm not. If you're the GM, that's what you want to do. You want to change the rules because you were so good. But as an NBA fan, I don't know. I just remember when I was like seeing Steph Curry raise the Western Conference Finals trophy or like whatever they were doing. I was like, yeah, like I knew that was going to happen. Yeah. So I mean, like, I just think it's really cool, and I'm happy that Steph Curry's finally starting to get his like. He always had his respect, but like people were like, "Oh, we can never be the number one player on the team," which was always a stupid take to me. But like, I feel like he proved it this year finally. He shut everyone up
He moved himself into the top 10 of all time.
because there's nothing else except I don't think there really was that much for him to do anymore. But like that finals that he just won,
It
I
was
feel
to
like
win
that,
a finals MVP. That was all he had to do.
and he did
And he
it.
shouldn't have had to do it, but he did.
And he had that killer celebration. So I mean, like night. So I mean, like it's just like I feel like he did everything I did. Well, I think that's it. Chase, you got anything else today? All right.
Not for
Well,
today.
everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the CCSN podcast. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Twitter, excuse me, at CCSN Sports. And guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.